wherever you're joining us. Thank you for being here. I want to welcome this guy in. He is one of my favorite people, both personally and I would say from the standpoint of talent. I think he is almost without peer, maybe completely without peer, like no one else can live up to the versatility, the magical quality that this guy has.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. He's Josh Robert Thompson, everyone, the voice of so many of your favorite shows.
Heyo.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Mark Thompson coming at you right here on YouTube and all kinds of streaming platforms.
Yeah.
Mark T. How are you, Mark T?
It's Thompson and Thompson.
Thompson and Thompson in the morning, in the mid-afternoon, almost afternoon. Thompson.
Josh Robert Thompson, you're the voice of on so many shows, of so many shows. I'm thinking of the Kelly Clarkson show.
Sure.
Is that show still up and running with the writer's strike or not?
Yeah, it's all over. No, that hasn't. We haven't done any shows since. And they moved to New York, as a matter of fact. So
they deal you out?
I don't even know if I'm on the show, to be honest. We'll find out in the fall.
This is exactly. Are you for real, right? Because this would happen to me with Idol. Yeah. Idol moved to ABC. Okay, right. I did 15 seasons as the voice of American Idol. Just the voice at the beginning, And when they moved to people said, "Are you going to still be doing it?" I don't know. They don't tell me. Like that wasn't their top line item to contact the VO guy.
I have. Where's the? Hey, make sure you let our Morgan Freeman guy know. Who?
You did it. You did the show as Morgan Freeman, and it was brilliant. And you improv a lot of stuff. It was really a lot of fun.
I did. We had a good time, Mark. We had a real good time. Oh, yeah.
You started that Morgan Freeman. Did you start the Morgan Freeman on the Late Late Show? Or the whatever it was called? Yeah, the Craig Ferguson deal?
Yeah, because Morgan was a guest on the show, and I said it was a huge deal, by the way, because it was like, well, let's see how it goes. Morgan's going to be a guest. Maybe don't do the impression right away. He's probably not going to like it. It's always this way, by the way. It was always like that on the show. Don't look directly in Craig's eyes. He's never going to go for a robot skeleton that talks, or don't do your different. But all of it, of course, worked out just fine. So, yeah, I decided to talk to Morgan Freeman as Morgan Freeman. And he was like, oh, damn, that guy sounds like me. And the rest is history, as they say.
And you really have doubled his voice in commercials, in movies. I mean, it's wild.
That's right. That's right. And now I'm getting up there, Mark. So my voice is a little bit different. You can hear maybe the denture flap a little bit in my voice. So, I'm 90 years old or whatever the hell it is. I'm about as old. I'm only a few years older than Harrison Ford. Fun fact.
The thing you're talking about is a real thing. Like was Morgan's voice that you used to do, the younger Morgan Freeman, it does sound different than the Freeman of today.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, your voice changes naturally as you get older. In fact, our 6-month-old cat Teddy is now a teenager, and I think his little cat balls dropped. And yesterday he was like, "Hey, how you doing?" Instead of so that's what happened. So after a while, the voice becomes a little thinner. In Morgan's case, it sounds a little older, and so sometimes they want to bring back that gravitas, give it that old pomp and circumstance, put a little shine on it. Mm-hmm.
You started. I mean, again, you started. I don't know. It's one of the high-profile things that you've done along the way. Before you really, I think the career really expanded. Family Guy, and then I mentioned Kelly Clarkson, all these different projects. You were a participant on the Howard Stern show as Schwarzenegger.
That's right.
Can you just run through that? And then I think there was a development in that as well.
Years ago. This is probably 2002, somewhere around there. I started calling in to the Conway and Steckler show.
Oh,
Tim Conway Jr.
Angeles.
And Doug Steckler, right? Big LA radio show back in the day. And anyway, they got a hold of Gary Baba Booey Delabate over at the Stern show, and I started doing calls on Stern. And I think the biggest one was,
we're going to blow up the moon. The moon is total bullshit. We're going to get rid of the moon. And I have a 5-part plan to destroy the moon. And
then the other one was the big prank to George Takei. Oh my! Oh,
and George, he had Takei on his show, and you called in a Schwarzenegger, right?
George was his announcer. George Takei, of course, Sulu from most famously from the original Star Trek series, and he would be Howard's announcer. And he's an openly gay man, and at that time, Arnold said he would make the gay marriage bill legal
if George, I will sign the bill if you give me a reach around.
So, that kind of material on the Howard Stern show, is appropriate. So anyway, I have not done the show for 11 years.
As I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you decided to step back from the show because they were asking you to say stuff that was really like, and even for you, so off color or whatever that you just didn't want to.
I think you know what it was. I think the show was just changing as every show does, and I think what happened was it just wasn't as improvised as it used to be. The writers there are great. The writers there have to work so quickly during the show. I mean, you talk about improv. There's about 5 or 6 writers that are just spitballing ideas constantly during the show. It's like SNL. Maybe you get on that day, maybe you don't, and then you go back and try again the next day. So I just wasn't, but actually the other thing was I started doing the Late Late Show. The Late Late Show was taking up like all of my time. So I just couldn't make it work. But I got a call a couple months ago from the Stern Show asking me if I'd be interested in, doing Arnold again. And I'd actually had turned them on to some of my other impressionist friends. I got a friend named Jeff Richards, who's a brilliant impressionist, a lovely guy. He's a genius. I said, call him. Or Joe Gaudette, who does an amazing Arnold. I said, call Joe. And I don't know. They came back around and said, Howard would really love you to, do it. And so, you got to get up at 3:00 in the morning. And you got to sit there for the whole show. So it's about 3:00 in the morning.
Oh my God.
You come out of that booth at about 8 a.m. and you don't know who you are. But here's what happened. And it's a beautiful thing. And this is true. I did the show. I got on as Arnold. Howard and I were talking about the Netflix documentary. You and I talked a little bit about
about the Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, he's got a show,
right? I've got a show called Fuba, and also I've got a documentary about my life. It's fantastic, about the bodybuilding and all that.
And so that was it. So it was just like it fit like a glove. It was like no time had passed. And I swear to you, later that day, I got a text from producer Will Murray, who said, "Hey, you're going to get a call from Howard Stern in a couple minutes." And Howard himself, and this rarely happens. Howard's a great guy. Howard called me just to say how much fun it was and how excited it made him to do that segment, which made me feel amazing. So that's a really nice thing to do,
Yeah, well, I think
rejuvenated.
Yeah, and that reflects, I think, how big a contribution you're making to his show, So
I always feel like it's going to be terrible. I always feel like it was the worst thing I ever did. I guess that's pretty normal because once I got off the show and went and took a nap for 7 hours, I thought, well, that was terrible. And here I get a phone call from Howard Stern saying how great it was. So, in the moment, you're never really enjoying it, at least for me. You always think like, I could have done this, that, and the other thing.
Sure. So, I think that's what, makes you a great performer. My return to Howard Stern Show is one thing you wanted to touch on, and we did, and I'm glad we got to it. But you also mentioned that the first autograph signing for Starlight Children's Charity. What?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I did. Well, I guess it was interesting because it's the first autograph signing I've ever done, which is a shock to many, including myself. It's the first time I've ever done an autograph signing.
You didn't think there'd be demand for the autograph, is what you're saying?
I really didn't. Well, I mean, there hadn't been because, during the dark times, I would call conventions and they'd say, yeah, we don't want any. We don't know who you are. But I thought, well, let's do this for charity. Starlight Children's Foundation is one of my charities that I work with. And it's a great organization that, provides like medical gowns to children that are in the hospital. It's a very scary thing if you're a kid and you're in the hospital. I mean, it's bad enough when you're an adult, you're in the hospital. So they provide all these different services for kids that are very entertaining and help make that process a bit easier for them and more, palatable. So,
and where do they have the signing?
Well, it was virtual. I did it right here where I'm sitting right now. And it was a company called Streamily. And believe me, when they called me and approached me about it, I thought, this sounds like the saddest thing. It sounds like I'm at the end. This is it. I have reached the final stage of my career where I'll be signing things, in my bathroom live on Instagram. But we turned it into a show, and you can watch it. I have multiple camera angles and graphics. I even had an overhead camera pointing down to each print.
This is among your, I think, your superpowers early on in this whole process with cameras, and now everybody's got a camera and a ring light, and everybody's got a podcast.
Right.
But before that, Josh Robert Thompson had all of that with multiple cameras and a switcher that he handled live while he's improvising all kinds of material. I was astounded. It was that's where I really discovered you or tried to connect with you. I knew of you, but tried to connect with you early on. I was just so amazed by that.
Yeah, well, that's cool because that process evolved. And because, I went to school for this and I did public access TV for 10 years, I sort of learned all this stuff. But now it came in handy. It actually, so you can watch the show. It's on my YouTube. Just look up Josh Robert Thompson, the full hour-and-a-half show. It's all my characters, Apostle BG, George Lucas, Morgan Freeman. It's really fun, and it's a taste of like the shows I'll be doing in the future. But
and it's a taste. Honestly, it sounds like it's a throwback to some of those characters to some of the shows you did in the past as well.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, the prints, we sold so many prints. It did so well. A lot of love for Apostle BG and George Lucas. I was really surprised at the number of people. But obviously, Jeff Peterson was a big hit. But boy, it really made me feel good.
And for those new to the party, Jeff Peterson was the robot, of course, on that Craig Ferguson Late Late Show. But Apostle VG is this, he's a televangelist with the Bible and, like, as I recall, a cigarette in his hand.
That's right, man. That's right, Mark. Yes. Don't act like you don't know, Mark. Don't act like you haven't been to my church. Don't act like every Sunday you don't come to the potluck with your weird vegan fish sticks. Tastes like we know what it is. I go, wait, this ain't orange roughy. This is just rough, is what this is, and I don't care for it. So
what is
get out?
You're a huge film fan.
Yeah.
You seen anything so far that you like or that you're disappointed with?
What's going on out there? What's happening out there? What are they doing to Harrison Ford? What's the matter with you people?
Did you like that?
I mean, let me tell you. Let me tell you something. You've been kicking around. You've been punching George Lucas in the face for years. Now he gets all the respect because what happened? The new Star Wars movies came out. Everybody went, "Oh, I guess Uncle George is okay. I guess Uncle George is okay." Well, there's another property that I helped make, and that's Indiana Jones. And when Crystal Skull came out in 2008, everybody, "Oh, it was terrible." Well, now everybody says, "Well, Crystal Skull wasn't too bad, because Daddy Spielberg, Spielberg's not at the helm. It's fine. There's nothing worse than a fine Indiana Jones movie."
That's what our guy said. Our critic who's on this show said it's fine. Exactly. I mean, it
shouldn't be fine. It should have even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I love because it's rooted in the 1950s Cold War sci-fi. I mean, if you get that going in, it's a blast. It's pure Indiana Jones, pure Saturday matinee 1940s serial fun. It has two of the greatest set pieces in that movie. I mean, it's just Temple of Doom. I just rewatched Temple of Doom, and as inappropriate as that movie is, again, it is a throwback to the 1930s.
Sure.
It is really good. And it's really scary. Well, we thought it would be fun to have kids, being enslaved and working in mines. We thought that'd be fun. Really? You thought that'd be fun? Yeah, it's a laugh riot at the movies.
So you do that George Lucas. I was telling everybody the George Lucas voice, and you'll dress up as George Lucas with like full-on makeup.
Yeah, sure I will. Well,
The other character that I do is Steven Spielberg. And, Mark, I got to tell you, it's wonderful. You got to put your hands like this when you do Steven Spielberg. Well, it's great. I didn't want to direct this film. I told James Mangold, he should direct this film. He's a wonderful director. I said, listen, after we screen the movie, he always says things like this. He's very presentational. He said, after we screened the movie over at the studio, and I turned to everybody and I said, I thought I was the only one that could make these pictures. It turns out I'm not. So it's fantastic. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Well, you're also a producer of the film.
No, it's wonderful. It's great. It's probably the best one that's ever been made.
Okay.
Well, not exactly objective. That's a very good point.
By the way, another great a film that I loved that's getting mixed reviews, the new Insidious film in the Insidious horror film series. It's called Insidious: The Red Door. And it's directed by the lead actor. I can't remember the guy's name. Patrick something. He's great. Patrick's great. He's wonderful. Yeah. I love Patrick. He directed the film, and it is a very emotional, very small. It's a very small film that really is just about family. What I like about it is it's not all of the same horror business from the original films. Mm-hmm. And it really ties up the series, I think, beautifully and poetically. And I shed a little tear at the end. I don't cry at horror movies, but I got pretty choked up at this one.
Patrick Wilson. Yeah.
Patrick Wilson, his first his directorial debut. He did a fantastic job, and I think and good on them. They made
they beat Indiana Jones at the box office. They toppled us at the box office. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Bunch of crap. It's a bunch of crap.
Did you're on a Stephen King podcast?
Oh, there's a podcast, Fangoria, the big horror magazine, which has been around for years. Fangoria is the reason I got into horror, because when I was really young, I was probably 5 or 6 years old. I was at a grocery store with my grandmother, and I remember the reaching at the newsstand inside the grocery store. I remember trying to grab a copy of what was Fangoria magazine. And the cover was a movie called Ghost Story. If you remember this early 80s film, Fred Astaire was in it and a number of other actors. It's old guys sitting around sharing ghost stories. It has this horrifying picture on the front of a woman. Half her face is gone and it's like a bloody skeleton. And at 6 years old, I just had to see it. And I remember my grandmother took the magazine away from me and she said, yucky. She said, that's yucky. So thanks, Grandma, because you told me it was yucky. My whole room now is filled with disgusting horror movies. But
that's the way it works, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And they have a podcast called The King Cast, which is all things Stephen King. And I got on the radar of these hosts, and they would have me on now and again as Morgan Freeman, kind of the Matt Damon bit from the Jimmy Kimmel Show, where Morgan Freeman was built up as the guest, and then they always ran out of time. So at the end of the show, you'd hear me go, I can't believe you, son of a bitch. And
that's actually clever.
Yeah. And so then one day they go, hey, maybe we'll have you on as a guest. And so I went on as myself, and the book that we talked about was The Stand, just a tiny book, just a 5,000 page book. But it's one of my favorite current interviews, long form interviews that I've done. And I think if you're a Stephen King fan, you'll get a kick out of it. What I liked about it was that I could be myself and actually talk about films and horror movies.
And you know so much about that. Let me ask you quickly. The Stand is the one where it's about a lab leak or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about a government created strain of superflu. Sound familiar? Right. Anybody?
Exactly. I mean, it's truly made for the pandemic. Right.
It's a terrifying book. And it also connects to the Stephen King's Dark Tower series, because there is an evil character in The Stand that will later appear as the villain in the Dark Tower book. So Stephen King has kind of created this amazing universe of characters and stories that all live in the same world. But great interview, and I was so honored to be a part of that. I thought,
and so that's on Fangoria. That's the podcast.
Yeah, you can find it. It's called the King Cast, and you can find it on the Fangoria Podcast Network.
Wow. I had a question related to The Stand. Did they do a movie about it or not?
They've done several movies. Yeah, sure.
How did those movies do? Did the movie?
Well, the one in the 90s was the big one. That was the an ABC, miniseries event, The Stand. right? That was like a huge deal. When I was coming out of high school, oh man, it was like, tune in tonight for the shocking finale of The Stand. And then they recently redid it for, I don't know, Paramount Plus or something.
So what? But okay, so I guess what I'm asking you, is there a decent movie version of the book?
I would
or not?
say that the '90s version,
the original, the ABC version.
That's director Mick Garris, who I think he has a show called Post Mortem. Is that right? It's a horror podcast. Mick Garris has directed a great number of Stephen King adaptations have been directed by the great Mick Garris. And he did one of my favorite movies called Critters 2, one of the great horror films about killer porcupines from outer space. And anyway, Mick's a lovely guy, and that's a great, that's the newsstand. Oh no, that's the old one. Yeah, Molly Ringwald and Gary Sinise.
Wow.
Hey, I'm in this movie. Hey, hey, Mark, it's Gary Sinise. Hey, that's what he does in the whole film.
I love talking to you. Love that things are going so well. You're the real thing, JRT.
I'm still working. We're still here until the strike happens tomorrow.
I'll tell you the truth. I'm bummed out that I didn't think of that Morgan Freeman, like bumping Morgan Freeman every day on this show. That would have been so. You wouldn't have had to be here. You could have just done the drop. We could have played the drops. And
listen, we could just look. Just let this blow over. No one's listening right now to this interview. So let's just do it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
All right. We'll do it in the future. Leave me with some Arnold on the way out.
Fantastic. I love it. Yeah. Let me tell you something. First of all, let me tell you, Mark, you're vegan. Oh, I wanted to get your vegan bodybuilding tips because I'm trying to.
By the way, I'm trying to work out now. I'm trying to gain lean muscle mass. I'm 48. My God, you read these articles about working out over 40. I mean, I know they're trying to sell their product, but boy, they really amp up. They're like, well, you're basically dead. I mean, what? Right. What is this?
Your chi goes down. Your vitamin D.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Exactly.
What? So what do I do, Mark? Do I have? Because I can't eat 5 live chickens and broccoli all day. I can eat the broccoli.
Yeah,
lentils.
Well, there's plenty.
What are you
there's
doing
plenty. Yeah, there's plenty of protein. You don't need any from an animal. Of course not. Yeah, you can get. You've got. I mean, there any number of things. And plus, by the way, if you don't want to eat something, if you just want to jump on the banana and protein shake, there's all kinds of vegan protein shakes.
Right. All right.
But
we'll talk after the show. I don't want to put people to sleep. I want to get you hot tips. I want to get you hot tips on what I should be doing.
Yeah,
because I'm all flabby.
JRT. Do you still have JRT Voices? Is that the website?
The website now. So it's no longer the JRT Show, ladies and gentlemen. I am happy to announce, after 10 years of negotiating, I am now. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, the guy who held you up for more and more.
He had it at like $3,000. Ladies and gentlemen, for a reasonable price, Josh Robert Thompson has acquired JRTshow.com.
Wow, that's really exciting.
I've done it.
JRTshow.com.
Yeah, as soon as I bought it, I regretted it. Anyway.
There, we got it up on screen now. JRTshow.com.
Yeah, boy, does that need to be updated. Don't mind the font. It's from 10 years ago. We're gonna have a whole new website.
Look, you dance with the date that brung you, man. I like it. It works out.
Follow me on Threads. Don't follow me. Get out of here.
All right, Josh, come be a regular, will you? We love you.
I love you, buddy.
All right, talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Josh Robert Thompson, right on.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
We do, and he honors all of them. The great Josh Robert Thompson. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.